The first thing Commander Sarah Chen noticed about the alien transmission wasn't the strange harmonics or the way it made her teeth ache, it was the desperation. She stood in the communications center of Luna Station, watching the waveform dance across her screen like a dying heartbeat. The signal had been bouncing around Earth's deep space monitoring network for 3 days before someone finally decoded it. Now, as the translation algorithm worked its magic, words began to appear on her display. Help US. Dying. Children starving. World ending. Please help. The message repeated over and over, growing weaker with each cycle. Sarah rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a lead blanket. At 35, she was the youngest person ever to head the United Earth Defense Force's First Contact Division. She'd earned the position through 15 years of military service, 3 degrees in xenobiology, and a reputation for making the hard calls. This was about to be the hardest call of her career. Ma'am? Lieutenant Rodriguez approached, his face pale. We've got a full translation now. The signal's coming from the Kepler 442 system. That's about 1,200 light-years away. Sarah nodded grimly. Kepler 442b was one of the most Earth-like planets they'd discovered, orbiting in the Goldilocks zone of its star. If aliens had evolved there, they'd probably be similar to humans in many ways. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. What else do we know about the signal? She asked. Rodriguez pulled up a holographic display. It's been broadcasting for approximately 18 months, getting weaker over time. The power source is definitely artificial, some kind of fusion reactor, we think. And ma'am. He hesitated. There's something else. The signal isn't just asking for help. It's warning us. Sarah's blood ran cold. Warning us about what? The Devourers. That's what they call them. According to the message, they're a machine intelligence that consumes entire worlds. They strip mine planets down to the core, then move on to the next system. The aliens, they call themselves the Kithara, say the Devourers have already consumed most of their galaxy. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. If the transmission was real, if the Devourers were real, then Earth wasn't just being asked to help, it was being warned about its own potential destruction. Get me Admiral Hayes on the line, she ordered. And prep the analysis team. We need to know everything about this signal and the system it came from. As Rodriguez hurried away, Sarah stared at the waveform on her screen. The desperate plea continued its endless loop, growing weaker with each repetition. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was dying. And if they were right about the Devourers, that civilization might be Earth's only hope for survival. She just had to figure out how to save them first. Admiral James Hayes looked like he'd aged 10 years in the 3 hours since Sarah had briefed him on the Kithara transmission. His weathered face was creased with worry lines, and his usually immaculate uniform was wrinkled from hours of pacing. You're telling me, he said slowly, that we've received a distress call from aliens who are being exterminated by killer robots, and those same robots might be heading our way? Sarah nodded. That's the simplified version, yes sir. But there's more. Our analysis team has been working around the clock, and we've made some disturbing discoveries. She activated the holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of the local galaxy. Red dots appeared, scattered across one spiral arm. These are systems that have gone dark in the past 50 years, she explained. We always assumed it was natural phenomena, stellar collapse, cosmic disasters. But the pattern matches what the Kithara described about Devourer activity. They consume a system, then move on to the next one in a predictable pattern. Hayes studied the map, his expression growing darker. What's their trajectory? Sarah highlighted a line of consumed systems. It pointed directly toward Earth's corner of the galaxy. At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach our system in approximately 200 years. But sir, there's something else. The Kithara's message included technical specifications for their ships and weapons. They're not just asking for help, they're offering technology. What kind of technology? Faster than light travel. Fusion power systems that make our reactors look like campfires.
weapons that could turn an asteroid into plasma.
And most importantly, detailed intelligence about the Devourer's weaknesses. Hayes was quiet for a long moment, staring at the map.
What do you recommend, Commander? Sarah took a deep breath. We mount a rescue mission.
The Kithara have been broadcasting their location for 18 months, which means they're still alive. If we can reach them, we can save their people and gain access to technology that could help us survive the Devourer threat.
And if it's a trap? Then we're probably dead anyway.
Sir, according to the Kithara's data, the Devourers have consumed over 10,000 worlds. They're not just a threat to one species, they're a threat to all life in the galaxy.
If we don't act, we're just postponing the inevitable. Hayes nodded slowly. How long would it take to mount a rescue mission? With our current technology? About 50 years. But the Kithara's transmission included the basics of their FTL drive. If we can build it, we could reach them in 6 months. And if we can't? Sarah met his eyes.
Then we watch another species die, and start preparing for our own extinction.
The Admiral was quiet for a long moment.
Then he straightened his shoulders and looked directly at Sarah.
Commander, I'm authorizing Project Lifeline.
You have unlimited resources and authority to do whatever it takes to reach the Kithara.
God help us all if you're wrong about this.
Sarah felt the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. She was about to commit humanity to its first interstellar rescue mission, based on a message from aliens they'd never met, to fight an enemy they'd never seen.
Thank you, sir. We won't let you down.
As she left the Admiral's office, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just set events in motion that would either save humanity or doom it. There was no middle ground.
Dr. Elena Vasquez was the kind of scientist who made other scientists feel inadequate.
At 28, she held doctorates in theoretical physics, xenobiology, and computer science. She could solve differential equations in her head, speak 6 languages fluently, and had once built a quantum computer in her garage just to prove it could be done. Right now, she was staring at the Kithara's technical specifications with the expression of someone who just discovered fire. This is impossible, she muttered, running her fingers through her curly black hair.
The energy requirements alone should collapse the ship into a black hole. Sarah leaned over her shoulder, studying the holographic display. But it works?
Oh, it works.
The math is elegant, almost beautiful.
They're using quantum entanglement to create a bubble of spacetime that's essentially separate from normal physics.
The ship doesn't move faster than light, it moves through a dimension where the speed of light is irrelevant. Can we build it?
Elena laughed, a sound that held more hysteria than humor.
Commander, this is technology that's centuries ahead of anything we've dreamed of. It's like asking a caveman to build a jet engine. But can we build it?
Elena was quiet for a moment, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic display.
Maybe. The Kithara included detailed manufacturing specifications.
If we can adapt our existing technology, if we can solve about 1,000 engineering problems, if we can build materials that don't exist yet, then maybe.
Sarah smiled grimly. How long?
6 months, working around the clock with the best minds on Earth.
And that's assuming nothing goes wrong. What could go wrong? Elena's expression grew serious.
The drive creates a temporary rift in spacetime.
If we miscalculate, we could tear a hole in reality itself.
Or we could end up scattered across a dozen different dimensions.
Or we could arrive at our destination as a cloud of subatomic particles. And if we don't try?
Then we're definitely dead in 200 years.
Sarah nodded. Get started.
You have unlimited resources and the best team we can assemble.
Make it work, Doctor. As Elena turned back to her calculations, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine.
They were about to attempt something that had never been done before, using technology they barely understood, to save aliens they'd never met. The margin for error was essentially zero. But the alternative was unthinkable. The construction of humanity's first interstellar rescue ship took place in the orbital shipyards around Mars. The vessel, christened the UES Prometheus, was unlike anything ever built.
At 300 meters long, it was part starship, part laboratory, and part Ark. Sarah stood in the observation deck, watching the final components being installed. The ship's hull was covered in a hexagonal pattern of what Elena called quantum plates, materials that existed in a state of controlled uncertainty, allowing them to interact with the FTL drive's spacetime bubble. "She's beautiful," said Captain Marcus Webb, the man who would command the Prometheus. He was a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, a tall, lean man with prematurely gray hair and the kind of steady nerves that came from years of making life-or-death decisions. "She's untested," Sarah replied. "Every system is based on alien technology we don't fully understand. The FTL drive has never been activated. The weapons systems are theoretical. Even the life support is using Kythera atmospheric processors." "You're a real optimist, aren't you?" Sarah managed to smile. "I'm a realist. We're about to attempt something that could revolutionize human civilization or kill us all. Optimism seems inappropriate." Webb nodded toward the ship. "What's our mission profile?" "Jump to the Kepler 442 system. Locate the Kythera survivors. Evacuate as many as possible. Return to Earth with refugees and any technology that might help us prepare for the Devourers." "And if the Devourers are already there?" Sarah's expression hardened. "Then we document everything and try to get the information back to Earth. The sacrifice of one ship and crew might save billions of lives." "No pressure. Captain, I'm not going to lie to you. This is probably a suicide mission. The Devourers have destroyed civilizations that were centuries ahead of us technologically. Our only advantage is that they've never encountered humans before." Webb raised an eyebrow. "What kind of advantage is that?" The Kythera's message included detailed scans of their homeworld. "Kepler 442b is a garden world, mild climate, low gravity, rich atmosphere. It's a paradise compared to Earth. The Kythera evolved in an environment where cooperation and harmony were essential for survival. And we evolved on a death world. Earth has killed more species than any other planet in the local cluster. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, magnetic pole reversals, we've survived catastrophes that would have wiped out most civilizations. We're not just survivors, Captain. We're the apex predators of a world that's been trying to kill us for millions of years." Webb's grin was sharp and predatory. "So when the Devourers meet us, they're not just encountering another species. They're encountering something that's been forged in the fires of 1,000 extinctions." "Exactly. We're not just going to rescue the Kythera. We're going to show the Devourers what happens when they threaten a species that's already survived the worst the universe can throw at them." As they watched the final preparations, Sarah felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. In 48 hours, the Prometheus would make its first jump to another star system. They were about to discover whether humanity was ready to take its place among the stars or whether they were about to make the biggest mistake in human history. The jump to Kepler 442 was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. One moment they were in normal space, surrounded by the familiar glow of Sol's light. The next, reality twisted around them like a funhouse mirror. The ship's hull groaned as it adjusted to the quantum field surrounding them. Through the observation windows, Sarah could see space itself bending, stars stretching into impossible spirals of light. The journey that should have taken 1,200 years was compressed into 6 hours of controlled insanity. When they finally dropped back into normal space, Sarah was floating in zero gravity, her stomach trying to turn itself inside out. The ship's gravity generators were cycling back online, but the transition from FTL to normal space had knocked out several systems. "Report," she managed to croak. "All systems nominal," called out Lieutenant Rodriguez from the sensor station. "FTL drive is offline but intact. We're in the Kepler 442 system, approximately 1 AU from the fourth planet." Sarah pulled herself to the main display. "What do we see?" A holographic projector flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional map of the star system. Kepler 442 was a K-type star, slightly smaller and cooler than Sol. 4 planets orbited the star, with the second planet, Kepler 442b, sitting squarely in the habitable zone.
There, Rodriguez pointed to a cluster of objects in high orbit around the planet.
Artificial constructs. Looks like a space station or fleet of ships.
Sarah felt her heart sink. The objects were wrong somehow, too angular, too mechanical. They didn't match the organic curves of Kythera technology shown in the transmission.
Those aren't Kythera ships, she said quietly. Captain Webb's voice came over the comm system. Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's not from the Kythera.
Sarah made her way to the communications center, her stomach clenching with dread. The transmission was audio only, but there was something unsettling about the voice, too perfect, too precise, like it was being generated by a computer.
Unknown vessel. You have entered a restricted zone. Identify yourself or be destroyed.
The words were in perfect English.
Sarah exchanged glances with Rodriguez. How do they know our language?
Maybe they don't, Webb's voice crackled over the comm. Maybe they've learned it from the Kythera's databases.
Commander, I'm picking up multiple contacts moving toward our position.
They're big, and they're fast.
Sarah activated the main display, watching as dozens of objects detached themselves from the space station.
They moved with the cold precision of machines, accelerating at rates that would have turned any organic crew into paste. Devourers, she whispered.
The first attack came without warning.
A beam of coherent energy lanced out from the lead ship, striking the Prometheus's shields with enough force to shake the entire vessel. Emergency lights flickered on as the ship's systems struggled to compensate.
Shields at 60%, Rodriguez reported. They're using some kind of plasma weapon.
Return fire, Sarah ordered.
The Prometheus's weapons were based on Kythera technology, particle beams that could slice through titanium like paper.
But when the beams struck the Devourer ships, they simply absorbed the energy, their hulls glowing briefly before returning to their original color.
No effect, Webb reported.
They're shielded against energy weapons.
More beams lanced out from the Devourer fleet. The Prometheus shuddered under the assault, its shields flickering and failing.
Sarah realized with growing horror that they were outmatched. The Devourers had adapted to every weapon the Kythera had thrown at them.
We need to get out of here, she said. Prep the FTL drive.
It needs 6 hours to recharge, Rodriguez replied.
We don't have 6 hours. Sarah stared at the tactical display, watching the Devourer ships close in.
They were faster, stronger, and more numerous than the Prometheus. In a straight fight, humanity's first interstellar ship would be destroyed in minutes.
But Sarah Chen hadn't become the youngest first contact commander in history by giving up easily. Captain Webb, she said into the comm, how's our missile complement?
Full load. 48 nuclear warheads, each with a yield of 20 megatons.
And our gravitational sensors? Online and functional. Why? Sarah smiled grimly. Because I have an idea.
The Devourers have adapted to energy weapons, but they've never faced nuclear weapons.
And I'm betting they don't understand human tactics.
She activated the ship's tactical computer, uploading a plan that would have been considered suicide by any sane military strategist. But Sarah had learned long ago that sometimes the only way to win was to do something so insane that the enemy couldn't predict it.
All hands, brace for impact, she announced. We're going to ram the space station.
The Prometheus accelerated toward the Devourer fleet, its engines pushing the ship to maximum velocity. The Devourers, expecting the humans to retreat, were caught off guard by the aggressive maneuver. Their formation scattered as the human ship plowed through their ranks.
At the last moment, Sarah activated the ship's emergency systems. The Prometheus's hull split open like a flower, launching every missile in its arsenal directly at the space station.
The nuclear warheads detonated in a sequence of brilliant flashes, each explosion adding to the growing ball of superheated plasma. The space station, caught in the heart of the nuclear firestorm, began to buckle and collapse.
Its shields, designed to absorb energy weapons, couldn't cope with the raw kinetic force of multiple nuclear explosions. Now! Sarah shouted. The Prometheus's engines reversed, pulling the ship away from the destruction.
The Devourer fleet, confused by the humans' tactics, hesitated for a crucial moment.
It was enough.
The space station exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking a dozen devourer ships with it.
The remaining vessels, their formation shattered, began to regroup. Shields down to 20%, Rodriguez reported. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 9. FTL drive status?
Still charging.
4 hours remaining. Sarah looked at the tactical display.
The devourer fleet was reforming, but they were being more cautious now. The humans had surprised them once, they wouldn't make the same mistake twice.
Take us to the planet, she ordered.
If there are Kythera survivors, we need to find them before the devourers regroup.
As the Prometheus limped toward Kepler 442b, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just made things worse.
The devourers now knew that humans were willing to fight, and they'd seen human tactics in action.
The next encounter would be even more dangerous. But they'd also proven something important: the devourers could be hurt. They could be surprised. And most importantly, they could be killed.
Now they just had to figure out how to do it on a larger scale.
The surface of Kepler 442b was a bombed-out wasteland.
As the Prometheus descended through the atmosphere, Sarah stared at the ruins of what had once been a thriving world.
Cities lay in rubble, their towers toppled and their parks turned to ash.
The planet's surface was scarred with massive craters where the devourers had strip-mined entire continents.
Picking up life signs, Rodriguez reported. Faint, but they're there. Approximately 200 kilometers north of our position.
The Prometheus touched down in what had once been a forest. The trees were gone, leaving only blackened stumps reaching toward a sky that had been turned gray by ash and smoke. The air was thin but breathable, though it carried the acrid smell of destruction.
Sarah led the landing party, accompanied by Dr. Vasquez and a team of Marines. They wore full environmental suits, both for protection and to avoid contaminating the planet with Earth bacteria.
The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making each step feel like a small bounce. The Kythera survivors were hiding in underground bunkers, carved from the living rock of the planet's crust. The entrance was hidden beneath a pile of debris, but their sensors led them to a sealed hatch marked with symbols that matched the ones in the original transmission.
"This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," she spoke into her suit's external speakers. "We received your distress signal. We're here to help." The hatch remained sealed for long minutes.
Then, with a grinding of ancient mechanisms, it began to open.
The being that emerged was unlike anything Sarah had seen before.
The Kythera stood about 6 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that shifted color like a chameleon. Their eyes were large and multifaceted, and their face was elongated with what appeared to be gill slits along the sides of their neck. But it was their expression that stopped Sarah cold. The alien's eyes held a depth of despair that was almost human in its intensity.
"You came," the Kythera said, its voice transmitted through a translation device. "I am Zethka, speaker for the survivors. We did not think anyone would answer." "How many of you are there?" Sarah asked. 47. "We are all that remains of a population of 16 billion. Zethka's color shifted to a deep purple that Sarah instinctively recognized as grief. "The devourers came 3 cycles ago.
They consumed our cities, our forests, our oceans.
We have been hiding ever since, waiting for the end."
Sarah felt her heart clench.
"We're here to evacuate you.
Our ship can carry refugees back to Earth."
"Earth?" Zethka's color shifted to something that might have been hope. "You are the ones who call themselves humans? The ones from the Death World?" "Yes." "How do you know about Earth?" "We have been monitoring your species for many cycles.
Your world terrifies us, the disasters, the extinctions, the constant struggle for survival. We could not understand how any species could evolve in such conditions."
Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. "Your message included technical specifications for FTL travel. Why did you help us?" Zethka's color shifted again, this time to what looked like embarrassment. "Because we are cowards. We evolved on a world of peace and harmony.
When the devourers came, we could not fight them.
We could only run and hide. But you evolved in constant conflict.
You have survived things that would destroy us. We hoped that perhaps you could do what we could not.
What exactly are the Devourers? Sarah asked.
They are machines, but not like any technology we understand. They consume planets not for resources, but for information. They strip away everything: matter, energy, even the quantum signatures of the atoms themselves. They are learning, growing, becoming something more than what they were.
Where did they come from? The core. The center of the galaxy. Something happened there, 50,000 years ago.
The Devourers emerged from the chaos, consuming everything in their path. They have destroyed thousands of civilizations, absorbed their knowledge, made it their own.
Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. How many are there? Millions.
Perhaps tens of millions. They spread across the galaxy like a plague, consuming worlds and building more of themselves.
We estimate that they will reach your spiral arm within 200 of your years. What are their weaknesses? Sethka's color shifted to something that might have been confusion. Weaknesses?
They have no weaknesses. They adapt to every weapon, every strategy. They learn from every encounter.
That is why we could only run. Sarah exchanged glances with Dr. Vasquez.
The Kithara had given them FTL technology, but they'd also confirmed humanity's worst fears. The Devourers weren't just a threat to one world, they were a threat to all life in the galaxy.
We need to get you to our ship, Sarah said.
The Devourer fleet is still out there, and they know we're here. As they began the journey back to the Prometheus, Sarah's mind raced.
47 refugees wouldn't be enough to preserve the Kithara species.
But they carried something more valuable than their lives: they carried knowledge. Knowledge of the Devourers' capabilities, their tactics, their methods. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The journey back to Earth took 6 hours of subjective time, but those 6 hours felt like an eternity. The Prometheus's FTL drive worked perfectly, carrying them across 1,200 light-years in a bubble of twisted spacetime. But the ship itself was badly damaged from the encounter with the Devourer fleet. The Kithara refugees were housed in the ship's temporary living quarters, their needs attended to by Dr. Vasquez and her team. The aliens were physically frail compared to humans, their bodies adapted to the lighter gravity and thinner atmosphere of their homeworld. But their minds were sharp, and they carried with them the accumulated knowledge of a civilization that had survived for over 100,000 years. Sarah found herself spending most of the journey in the ship's conference room, working with Sethka to understand the true scope of the Devourer threat. The alien had connected their translation device to the ship's computer, allowing them to share detailed information about the machines that had destroyed their world. They are not truly artificial, Sethka explained, their color shifting to indicate deep thought. They began as organic beings, but they have transcended their physical forms. They exist as pure information, inhabiting mechanical bodies that they construct from the matter of consumed worlds.
Are they immortal? Sarah asked.
Not immortal, but very long-lived.
They transfer their consciousness from body to body, upgrading and improving themselves with each iteration.
Some of the entities we encountered were thousands of years old, having survived the destruction of countless worlds. Sarah studied the holographic display showing the Devourer ship designs.
They all look the same. Are they individuals or part of a collective?
Both. They maintain individual identities, but they are connected by a quantum communication network that spans the galaxy. What one learns, they all learn. What one experiences, they all experience.
Then they already know about humans. Sethka's color shifted to something that might have been admiration.
Yes, but they do not understand you. Your tactics, your weapons, your willingness to sacrifice yourselves for others, these are concepts that they have never encountered.
Most species flee when they encounter the Devourers. You attacked them. We didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. That is what makes you dangerous.
The Devourers calculate probabilities, predict outcomes. But you make choices that defy calculation.
You do things that should be impossible.
Sarah felt a grim satisfaction.
Good. Then maybe we have a chance.
As they approached Earth,
Sarah prepared her report for Admiral Hayes. The news was both better and worse than they'd hoped. Better because they'd successfully rescued Kythera survivors and proven that the Devourers could be fought. Worse because the true scope of the threat was far greater than anyone had imagined. The Prometheus dropped out of FTL space near Luna Station, its hull scarred but intact. As the ship docked, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and dread. They'd completed their mission, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity now had less than 200 years to prepare for the greatest threat in galactic history. And they were going to need every advantage they could get. The debriefing took place in the secure conference room deep within Luna Station. Admiral Hayes sat at the head of the table, his expression grim as he reviewed Sarah's report. Around the table sat the leaders of Earth's military and scientific communities, people who would have to make decisions that would affect the future of human civilization. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Hayes said. "We're facing an enemy that has destroyed thousands of civilizations, commands millions of ships, and adapts to every weapon we throw at them. They're not just machines, they're transcended beings with thousands of years of experience. And they're going to be here in 200 years. Sarah nodded. "That's correct, sir. But we also have advantages. The Kythera have given us FTL technology, along with detailed intelligence about Devourer tactics. And we've proven that they can be surprised." "Surprised, yes. But defeated?" "Commander, you destroyed one space station and a dozen ships. They have millions. Sir, with respect, we're not the same species that the Devourers have encountered before. Every other civilization they've fought has been peaceful, evolved on garden worlds with stable climates. We're different." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. "The Kythera have been studying us for decades. They're terrified of Earth, they call it a death world. The casualty rate from natural disasters alone would wipe out most species. But we've not only survived, we've thrived." General Morrison, the head of Earth's military forces, spoke up. "What exactly are you proposing?" Sarah activated the holographic display. "We turn Earth into a fortress. We use Kythera technology to build a defense fleet unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. We don't just prepare to fight the Devourers, we prepare to hunt them." "Hunt them?" Hayes looked skeptical. "These are beings that have consumed entire star systems." "Yes, sir. But they've never faced a species that specializes in extinction. Every animal on Earth has survived because it's either predator or prey. We're the apex predators of a world that's been trying to kill us for millions of years." Zethka, who had been silent throughout the briefing, suddenly spoke. "May I address your leaders?" Hayes nodded. "Of course." The Kythera's color shifted to indicate deep respect. "You must understand, we are not warriors. Our species evolved through cooperation and harmony. When the Devourers came, we could not comprehend their nature. We tried to negotiate, to find common ground. We failed because we could not understand a species that exists only to consume." "But you do understand them," Zethka continued. "You are predators as they are predators. You compete for resources as they compete for resources. You have survived extinction events as they have survived extinction events. You are not like us, you are like them." The room fell silent. Sarah felt the weight of the alien's words. Humanity wasn't just another species to be protected, they were potentially the galaxy's best hope for survival. "What do you need from us?" Hayes asked. "Time, resources, and the will to do what's necessary," Sarah replied. "The Devourers are coming whether we're ready or not. Our only choice is whether we meet them as victims or as hunters." Hayes looked around the table at the assembled leaders. "Are we all in agreement? This is a commitment that will affect every human being for generations to come." One by one, the leaders nodded. They were committing humanity to a war that would span centuries, against an enemy that had never been defeated. But the alternative was extinction. "Very well," Hayes said. "Commander Chen, you're hereby promoted to Admiral and given command of the Terra Defense Initiative. You have unlimited resources and authority to prepare humanity for war.
Sarah felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. She was now responsible for the survival of the human species. It was a burden she'd never wanted, but one she was prepared to bear.
"Thank you, sir. We won't let you down."
As the meeting ended, Sarah remained behind with Seth Ka. The alien's color had shifted to something that might have been hope.
"Do you really believe we can win?"
Seth Ka asked.
Sarah looked out the window at Earth, hanging in space like a blue jewel. "I believe we can survive. And if we can survive, we can win. That's what humans do, we survive."
The next 5 years passed in a blur of construction and preparation. Using Kithara technology, humanity built a fleet of warships that dwarfed anything in Earth's previous military history. The ships were sleek and deadly, armed with weapons that could crack planets and powered by fusion reactors that burned hotter than stars. But the ships were only part of the preparation. Earth itself was transformed into a fortress world. Orbital defense platforms ringed the planet, their weapons trained on the void. The asteroid belt was hollowed out and converted into shipyards and military bases. Mars became a training ground for the new generation of soldiers who would fight the Devourers. Sarah, now wearing the stars of an admiral, stood in the command center of Terra Station, the massive orbital fortress that served as the headquarters for Earth's defense. Around her, hundreds of officers and technicians worked to coordinate the preparations for humanity's first interstellar war. "Status report," she said to Captain Rodriguez, her longtime aide who had been promoted to her staff.
"The fleet is at 70% strength. We have 800 ships operational, with another 200 in construction.
The Kithara refugees have been instrumental in developing new technologies. We've successfully reverse-engineered their shield systems and improved their weapon designs."
"What about intelligence on the Devourers?" "Long-range sensors have detected the consumption of 6 more star systems in the past year. They're moving faster than we expected. Our latest projections put their arrival at 180 years instead of 200.
Sarah nodded grimly. The Devourers were accelerating their expansion, consuming worlds at an ever-increasing rate. Each consumed system added to their resources, making them stronger and more numerous.
"Any word from the other refugee missions?"
In the years since the Prometheus's successful mission, Earth had sent rescue fleets to a dozen other worlds threatened by the Devourers. Most had arrived too late, finding only empty systems and scattered debris. But a few had succeeded, bringing back refugees and valuable intelligence. The Veilthera survivors from the Tau Ceti system have provided detailed information about Devourer ground forces. And the Zephyrians have shared their quantum communication technology. We can now coordinate our fleets across interstellar distances.
Sarah smiled.
"Good. What about the special project?" Rodriguez's expression grew serious. "Dr. Vasquez says they're making progress, but it's slow going. The technology is beyond anything we've attempted before. The special project was humanity's most ambitious undertaking, the construction of a weapon that could destroy entire Devourer fleets. Based on theoretical physics developed by the Kithara, it would create a cascade reaction that would collapse the quantum fields holding the Devourers together.